So my name is Balazs Szechy. I'm working for the research service of the Parliament, currently under secondment, in the structural policies unit and the regional development team of the structural policies unit. I recently wrote a briefing on the emerging debate on the future of cohesion, post-27, where I try to collect various contributions from both from European institutions and also from stakeholders, NGOs, and other interest representations. I think we are now in the middle of a reflection period. The institutions are collecting ideas, gathering ideas from various stakeholders. Now, as far as the Commission is concerned, last year a high-level group of specialists were convened, and they held approximately 10 meetings on various topics. This group brought together people from the from academia, and also former members of the Parliament, former commissioners, and they have delivered their report in February. And I think it's really useful to read their recommendations and their conclusions. And these conclusions feed into the 9th cohesion report of the Commission, which was published in March this year. Of course, this is a very broad report, like covering many aspects and various aspects. A lot of information was collected with very spectacular maps, and the way of presentation is also impressive. Now, what do we find in this report? So, it has this 9th cohesion report has a chapter on regions with specific geographic features, where mountainous regions are also included. I mean, for the definition, the NUTS 3 statistical regions in which more than half of the land area is mountain is considered as a mountain region, or where more than half of the population lives in mountain areas. So, these regions cover more than 28% of the total territory of the EU, and they are home to 17% of the total population of the EU. And what we can see on this table on the right-hand side is that the GDP per head is somewhat lower in mountain regions than the European average. I mean, mountain regions are not doing particularly badly when compared, for example, to external border regions or outermost regions, but they are still below the average. And of course, there are various reasons for this, the specific geographical features, difficult access to infrastructure, problems with facilities and services like transport, education, healthcare, access to internet, and various factors play a role here. And these mountain regions are indeed often border regions. There is a limited availability of arable land. Road construction is usually difficult and more expensive, so the density of the roads is lower. There are issues with physical and digital connectivity. But the 9th cohesion report also, of course, lists some positive elements, like the abundance of natural resources, be it water or wind or green energy, and the potential of tourism. And it has the 9th cohesion report also has an interesting section on the forests, and the conclusion is that the mountain forests are the ones in the best conditions. Now, if you see the evolution of GDP growth, mountains are here with red. What you can see is that the COVID period hit particularly hard mountainous regions, and there was a sharp decline, but now we are experiencing a rebound. So it's for a limited number of years. And then the 9 Cohesion Report has also some interesting statistics on employment, unemployment rates, and also tertiary education rates. What we can see is that mountainous regions have lower employment rates and somewhat lower share of the population with a university degree or and here you can also see the performance of these regions compared to other regions with specific territorial characteristics. So, you know, the 9th Cohesion Report is more of a descriptive nature, and it provides a lot of information, but when it comes to proposals for the future, then I would say that it is still somewhat vague, or some people expected more in terms of shaping the future of the policy. If I want to be honest and blunt with you. Now, in the European Parliament, you know, the last important report in this legislation was this implementation report 1420, the so-called Novakov report. As a Bulgarian member, Andrei Novakov was the rapporteur. And based on the experience of the implementation of the previous funding period, he formulated some messages for the future and some lessons for the future. And it is also important to mention that there is an intergroup in the European Parliament on rural, mountainous and remote areas. RAMRA is the abbreviation, and smart villages. And this intergroup, you know, is bringing together the members who come from mountainous regions, who have a special interest in these regions, and they hold regular meetings with experts, with stakeholders, and their position also fed into this Novakov report. I listed here the most important conclusions, and this report was adopted by an overwhelming majority, nearly unanimously. So we can speak about political consensus, at least in the European Parliament, around these issues. So the first one is that the budget should be increased, and there should be special resources devoted to these regions. And, you know, in the past few years, what I observed in the Parliament is that there is a growing sense of frustration that cohesion money is very often transferred and it is used for emergency response instruments, and this somewhat endangers, you know, the predictability, the long-term nature of this policy. So members would like to avoid it. And then another important conclusion is that all regions should be eligible for cohesion funding, and they should receive targeted help. Of course, the principle of shared management is very important, multi-level governance, the place-based approach, and also simplification. We very often pay lip service to simplification, but it would be really important to implement it in practice. Now, a rather innovative idea is when it comes to the legislation for the next funding period, then Parliament is of the opinion that in order to avoid delays, the work could be divided in two parts, and first an agreement could be reached on the content part of the regulations, and the financial part will be most probably concluded only at a later stage, in the very last moment, as a part of the package deal. So somehow to separate the discussion on the content part and to agree earlier on the content part, while in order to avoid delays. Now, of course, you know, the elephant in the room is the RRF, Recovery and Resilience Facility, and what kind of lessons do we draw from it? Well, most members of the parliament are critical to the RRF when it comes to its territorially blind nature. On the other hand, I think the performance element is an interesting, useful element with the milestones and the targets. The question is how this can be implemented when, for example, local and regional authorities are not always responsible for these reforms, or they are not the ones who can shape really these policies. So it's a challenge to apply the performance-based method for the traditional cohesion funds. Then there is the do no harm to cohesion principle, which is important. Then other indicators beyond the GDP should be used. Maybe for the mountainous areas, the next point is also important, that the border regions should have a special allocation in the cohesion budget. And then maybe as a last one, I would like to mention the impacts of enlargement on cohesion policy. There, the Parliament's report is of the opinion that Ukraine's reconstruction should not be financed from the cohesion budget, but via other means. So these are the key takeaways of this report. And now, really, we are in the middle of this reflection period, and you know, the Commission is expected to come with its proposal for the next funding period sometime next year. So I would like to encourage you to get engaged, and via your policy papers, via your recommendations, let your voice be heard. And now you can really influence the debate and shape this ongoing debate. And the last part of my presentation is a little bit of advertisement also of what we do at the Parliament's Research Service. You might have heard about what Europe does for me. This is an interactive website. It is translated to all official languages, where you find these easy to read one-page notes on providing some examples of EU-funded projects in regions. There are now more than, I think, 1,700 entries. So you find there specific like towns or counties, municipalities, with a short description, and then with a list of EU-funded projects. That's the first part, in my region. So you can go on a map and select your area, your region. Then in my life, this is more on social groups, on interests, where you would also find some important, like interesting things you wouldn't think about, like, I don't know, windsurfing, for example. And then it turns out that the EU has funded a wind measurement system, which help windsurfers to plan their activities. And then in the In Focus, you have more detailed briefings on EU policies. So we also have dedicated briefings on people living in mountainous regions, for example. So I recommend you to visit this one, where you can find some more detailed information on the EU strategy for the Alps, for example, or one prominent example included in this briefing is the Upkeep the Alps project in the Lombardy region in Italy, which offers training courses on landscape maintenance for mountain professionals. There are other interesting details on the mountain product quality label to help mountain farmers, and also some funding mechanisms for farmers in mountainous areas who face natural constraints, such as a particularly challenging environment with altitude, climate, or steep slopes that may not be suitable for conventional machinery. So we have these briefings with a lot of hyperlinks where you can look up like more detailed rules for funding, who is available, who is eligible to apply, and such things. So I would like to finish with this, and thank you very much.